In the autumn of 1929, the United States stood at the height of confidence and prosperity. The Roaring Twenties had transformed American life, filling cities with new skyscrapers, factories with humming machines, and households with modern comforts once thought unimaginable. Stock prices climbed steadily, wages appeared strong, and belief in endless growth became a defining feature of the American dream. Yet beneath the surface, the foundations of this prosperity were fragile, built on easy credit, speculation, and uneven wealth. When confidence finally broke, it would trigger the most severe economic crisis in the nation's history. The collapse began in October 1929, when the stock market, long driven by speculative buying and borrowed money, suddenly turned downward. On October 24, known as Black Thursday, panic selling spread across Wall Street. 5 days later, on October 29, Black Tuesday, millions of shares were dumped as investors rushed to escape their losses. Fortunes vanished in hours, and the market's collapse shattered public confidence. While the crash did not cause the Great Depression by itself, it exposed deep structural weaknesses and set in motion a chain reaction that spread through the entire economy. Banks were among the first institutions to feel the shock. Thousands had invested heavily in the stock market or loaned depositors money without adequate safeguards. As fear spread, people rushed to withdraw their savings, triggering bank runs that many institutions could not survive. Between 1930 and 1933, more than 9,000 banks failed, wiping out the life savings of millions of Americans. With credit frozen and trust destroyed, businesses struggled to operate, and economic activity slowed to a near standstill. As companies collapsed, unemployment soared. By 1933, nearly 1 in 4 American workers was without a job. Factories closed, construction halted, and wages fell for those who remained employed. Families that had once lived comfortably found themselves unable to pay rent or buy food. In cities, long bread lines and soup kitchens became daily scenes, while makeshift communities of shacks, known as Hoovervilles, sprang up on the outskirts of towns. The promise of steady work and upward mobility, central to the American dream, seemed to vanish almost overnight. The crisis was not confined to cities. Rural America suffered deeply as falling prices devastated farmers. Crops brought in so little money that many could not repay their debts, and banks foreclosed on thousands of farms. In the Great Plains, years of drought and poor land management turned fertile soil into dust. Violent storms swept across the region, darkening skies and burying fields, homes, and entire towns. The Dust Bowl forced hundreds of thousands of families to abandon their land and migrate west in search of survival, turning environmental disaster into human tragedy. President Herbert Hoover initially believed that the economy would correct itself and resisted direct federal intervention. He favored voluntary cooperation and limited government involvement, but as conditions worsened, his policies appeared increasingly ineffective. Public frustration grew, and faith in leadership eroded. In 1932, voters turned to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who promised a New Deal for the American people and a more active role for government in restoring hope and stability. Upon taking office in 1933, Roosevelt moved swiftly to confront the emergency. He declared a national bank holiday to stop the collapse of the financial system and pushed Congress to pass sweeping reforms. New federal programs provided jobs, regulated banks and the stock market, and offered relief to the unemployed and elderly. While the New Deal did not end the Great Depression on its own, it restored confidence, stabilized key institutions, and reshaped the relationship between the federal government and the American people. Despite these efforts, recovery was slow and uneven. Many Americans continued to struggle throughout the 1930s, and full economic revival would not arrive until the demands of World War II reignited industrial production. Yet the experience of the Great Depression left a lasting mark on the nation. It transformed ideas about economic responsibility, social welfare, and the role of government, embedding lessons that would guide future generations through crisis. The Great Depression of 1929 stands as a defining chapter in American history, a moment when optimism gave way to hardship and certainty collapsed into fear. It revealed the vulnerabilities of unchecked growth and the human cost of economic failure. Yet it also demonstrated resilience, as millions endured suffering and worked to rebuild their lives. When the American dream faded in the shadow of the Depression, it was not destroyed, but reshaped, tempered by caution, strengthened by reform, and carried forward by the enduring determination of a nation to recover and endure.